Oh, hey.
Hey, everybody, we're back.
We're back.
It's week 2 of the Summer Game Fest.
Yeah.
And a lot more has happened this week than it did last week.
And I'm much more excited than I
some of the
was
stuff
last
that happened.
week.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's just different stuff, I guess.
I'm more excited than I was last week.
No. Let's jump into it. The first thing that happened was on... Good. This is just a me show now. First thing that happened was Tuesday, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
As of recording, this is 2 days ago. We got the announcement and an interview we got the announcement that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 are being basically remade. And then released as a bundle in September.
Yep.
And very excited for that.
Yes.
Very excited for that.
For those of you who have been listening to our channel for a long time, you may have just heard it pop up every once in a while. Fox and I throw down gauntlets at each other of who would be better at the Pro Skater games.
This is one where we would really... This would be a good matchup.
It would be a good matchup
Smash
for us.
Brothers,
yes.
obviously, you're going to destroy me.
Right.
Every other game, I'm going to destroy you.
Right.
This
just like
one, though...
you did in... Just like you did in...
in all of the games that we...
In...
Right, you're having a hard time remember because it's just
singling them out because it's so many.
It's so many of the games.
Anyway,
Tony Hawk Pro Skater, we would be pretty well matched.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, all this to say that these are games that are beloved by both Fox and I.
Yes.
In the last video, we talked about the Drive 5. Was it Drive?
Dirt
5.
Drive is a movie with Ryan Gosling. And there's only been one, unfortunately.
Drive 5 and Madden 21, how that's just not our genre.
Yeah, as far as sports go.
Yeah, this is us.
This is me. Yeah, I remember driving around with my dad to like 6 different Blockbusters to try to find a copy of Tony Hawk Pro Skater to rent on the N64.
I got into it around the third one, I think, and then I went backward after that. Maybe the second or third, but I went backward after that, and I played the crap out of literally every
and then the whole
one.
series was amazing.
Yeah,
up until Tony Hawk Pro Skater Project 8, that was the least good one, or not the least good one. It was the first one that was bad.
So for those of you guys who don't know the Tony Hawk games, it's skateboarding, obviously.
Yeah.
But it begins as kind of in a realism area where there's a lot of balancing and doing these tricks and being able to like manually balance these tricks and whatnot. But then you're able to up your skill level and get bonuses or whatever to it becomes Unreal at some point.
Yeah, it's skill based, but it doesn't really. It kind of disregards the actual physics.
Right.
You have basically on the scale you have skate, and then you have Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and they're kind of at the opposite ends of actual skateboarding physics.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer Tony Hawk Pro Skater over skate.
Yes,
but I do like both.
Yeah, so they're way fun, and you can go all kinds of cool places, including a local place for us, the Burnside Skate Park.
Yeah!
Burnside Bridge. And
forgot about that.
Yeah, and so there's a lot here for nostalgia, as well as it just looks visually stunning.
It looks great.
Real
it's
pretty.
4K,
Right. So more than anything, though, to me, this is just the nostalgia exciting. I will say that as far as new content goes, cool, man. They're remaking Tony Hawk. That's great. And I was happy about that.
It's going to be fun. It's $40 I saw, so good price.
Absolutely.
That's, I think, a fair price for remaking 2 games that we've played before.
A lot.
Yeah. And 100%. I'm excited for it. Was there anything so we watched, obviously there's the announcement trailer.
Right.
And then there was like an interview with Tony Hawk and one of the people from Vicarious Visions, which is the company that is remaking it. They also they did the Crash Bandicoot remake, which was very good. So that gets me excited. Yeah. Good company to be doing it. You didn't see the interview. I did. It was kind of okay. But was there anything from the actual trailer that kind of jumped out at you as interesting or exciting?
They said that you could replay in old modes, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. So there's bringing in a lot of that old nostalgia and things like that. Yeah. A lot of classic players. I guess more than anything, they very clearly have a demographic, and that's the crowd who played the first ones.
100%.
They're not trying to
create a new game.
Right. And I understand and I appreciate that. So again, to me, as much as they're trying to honor that old crowd is what really jumped out for me.
I mean, for me, one of the big things was it's got the original soundtrack.
Yeah.
That's a big draw for a lot of people. It was a great soundtrack, introduced a lot of people to a lot of music they never would have heard.
Right.
While also being a good game, so that was really fun. And then other than that, like, it didn't really seem like they're adding anything new. I think what they did say something from the interviews with Tony. First of all, Tony Hawk is apparently pretty involved in the creating of these games. Like, I don't think he's coding, but I think he's like, they send him builds of the game and get his input on how tricks should look and things like that. And I'm sure
it must be nice for him to have a group of people that recognize him and are like genuinely understanding who he is. If you guys don't know why that's funny, you should Google Tony Hawk's existential nightmare.
I saw a tweet the other day. It was basically like, I treat Tony Hawk like Dr. Doofenshmirtz treats Perry the Platypus. If I just saw Tony Hawk standing around, I'd just be like, that's some guy. But if he's holding a skateboard, I'd be like, Tony Hawk! It's really great. So anyway, he talked about how he gets builds of the game, and I'm sure he does like motion capture and stuff like that. But what they did talk about a little bit is that they are adding something like the revert, which is a thing you can do out of a quarter pipe to keep your combo going.
Right.
That was not in the original, but like after, like he said, after playing the later ones, going back and playing the first one, it was such like a
automatic
thing
that R2
that you
as
did
you come down.
That you're just like, it feels like it's missing it, and it's also not like we didn't invent that. Like, that existed when Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 came out. So that was cool. They're kind of updating it a little bit to make it feel like the kind of the truest form of what Tony Hawk Pro Skater did. So I like that. Better than that, it just seemed kind of, here's a remake.
Yeah, it's a remake and that we are excited about. Obviously, we just talked for 5 minutes about a minute and a half trailer. So we're excited about it. We really are.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Yesterday, there was it was called like the Summer Game Fest Showcase. They kept it really under wraps of what it was actually about. And it was the Unreal Engine 5 tech demo. So the Unreal Engine is basically an engine, a program that is used to create games.
Right.
A lot of huge games are created using Unreal.
Right. If you don't know what engines are for games, chances are you have played an Unreal game.
100%.
If you're watching a video game channel, if you're interested enough in video games, you're watching a video game channel right now, chances are you've used Unreal Engine before.
Yeah, you've seen it there. It's something that people like. You'll see a lot of. On YouTube, you can find like Super Mario 64 recreated in Unreal Engine. And, something like that. And so it is designed to be kind of like a user-friendly thing. And anyway, so it was their next like edition of the Unreal Engine, so what they did with this was show basically a demo for, unfortunately I found out it's not a game that's intended on being made.
It's just a tech demo.
It's a tech demo, but
although it looked really cool.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But so essentially what it was what, 5 to 10 minutes of...
Yeah, about 10 minutes.
Yeah, like this girl kind of exploring a crumbling ruin.
It was like Tomb Raider.
It felt Tomb Raider-y.
But a little bit more fantasy.
Yeah, right. And so it just kind of showed off what they can do. It hit on two big things, one of which was called Nanite, which was kind of the graphical, like the capabilities to create detail in the world.
Right.
As well as Lumen. Which was the bloom lighting, like just insane lighting techniques that they have now. And it kind of just would show off the things that those can do. So what was your overall take on this tech demo?
So this is obviously not the first tech demo that has ever been shown, and gamers have learned something about tech demos over time, that they are things that have a team and are worked on almost to the extent of like a full video game. Right. Not quite as much, but with a lot of work put into it and a lot of focus, and the purpose is to push it to its greatest
what can happen using this.
So we have to take this with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
That being said, it blew my mind.
I mean, it looked great.
It looked incredible to me. It looked better than great. So, I mean, they threw out a lot of numbers and things like that, like billions of triangles and whatnot.
That was my favorite thing. Like, so to me, okay, I don't care about graphics as much as a lot of people. I don't feel like that's as important as it's considered.
Right.
But it was, regardless, I feel like it was just funny how many times they talked about how many triangles were in there. It's like, cool.
They just mean it's like detail.
I know, like detail, but like what I took from that was this was a tech demo. Sure, it's pretty to look at, but what we're talking about here is for developers to hear. They were not explaining all the like terms they were using the whole time. They weren't like, it wasn't like lost in the weeds, like what the crap is happening. But it was also like, I don't know what that means, but this looks pretty. And I bet there was a lot of developers who were looking at that saying, oh, wow, that looks great.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. That's something
like,
we'll be able to do now. Yeah. And so it was a tech demo that was largely to show off what can happen. But for the general person who doesn't care nor doesn't know, it's like, okay, it looks great.
There were little things that they didn't outright say that really stood out to me. Like there was a moment in which they showed this statue, and like this statue has 100 million triangles, whatever. It's super detailed and it's gorgeous. And then they walked into the next room and they're like, oh, by the way, there are 500 more of that statue in here.
Yeah, something like that.
But what they didn't mention is there was no load time in between that.
Yeah.
All of that was in there. There was no load time in this entire
it was just
demo.
Instantaneous.
Everything was just smoothly going between. And the ability for all this, by the way, was run on the PlayStation 5, which is something we'll probably talk about later.
Sure.
But for the PlayStation 5 to be able to seamlessly process that much information was really impressive.
Yeah.
The lumen light thing, to me, dynamic lighting has been a very cool thing for a long time. And I didn't realize how much more immersive it could be. There were little things in the dynamic lighting, like rocks were falling and the shadow was moving with the rock as it fell. But that was a dynamic thing, meaning that as it was happening, the light was changing. This was not a pre-rendered event or whatever else.
Right.
And typically when you see lighting happen like that in a video game, it's a they made that moment ahead of time. It's static. It can only be in that one way. And then it just kind of goes and happens.
Out of the way.
What? Oh, your
that was in the way. Your computer is in the way. But yeah, no, it definitely, all of these things for me are cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, here's the thing. I think the Uncanny Valley can be said for everything, not just people. The Uncanny Valley, we're getting to a point where it's technically, yes, looks more realistic. I mean, if you just showed, like, if you took the person out of that, if you just took a photo or a screenshot of basically anything in that game, I would think, yeah, that's real life right there. And then be like, oh, cool, that's not real life. That's impressively created or whatever. But also the jumps we're getting, I feel like, are just they're less and less significant each time.
Right.
Because we're approaching photorealism.
Right.
You can only get so realistic before it is real.
That is absolutely something that I noticed about the demo, is that the female protagonist that they had in there, they chose for her to have a more cartoony, I guess.
She was a little more exaggerated.
Larger eyes.
Yeah.
She had a much more triangular face, and
I'm wondering if that was to demonstrate the realism of everything else, maybe. I don't know, like the contrast there.
Right.
So,
but to me, they could have gone either way, because if you would have taken her out of there and camera panned through this cave that they had,
right,
and told me, check out this drone footage, 4K drone footage of the cave,
this
I'd have been like, oh, cool.
Very
That's
cool.
Real life 4K drone footage. And then you're like, oh, by the way, this is all computer rendered. I'd be very surprised and impressed. I do understand what you're saying, though, that we're getting to a point in which graphical quality does not compare to just the quality of your game. There are incredible games that are made by indie devs that are 8-bit still or 16-bit
and still amazing and better than whatever incredibly realistic looking game that is standard whatever.
But I think the immersion is going to help in this, with the lighting and with the lack of loading times and the ability to do huge things without fear of it causing your game to lag or removing you from that immersion in some way.
Now, I know it's been stated this is not an actual game, it's just like a demo kind of thing, but also at the end, like, that could be a Stargate real easily. Give me a Stargate game, guys. I want to play a Stargate game.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Play a Stargate game from the alien side, like where you're in that weird alien Egypt.
Yeah.
Not as, because they've made Stargate games where you're a soldier. You're a soldier guy.
Yeah.
But I want to play the other side of that.
Or just take that and I want to go through Stargates and go to different places.
That would be very cool.
There was the interview afterward with Jeff Keighley and then three people. Let me see. Tim Sweeney, head of Epic Games.
Right.
Who also make the Unreal Engine. Which who explains why they can get so many big games for free on the Unreal on
right.
the Epic Store. GTA 5 is the free one this week. Tim Sweeney, Kim Library, that's not how you say it, and Nick Penwarden. Anyway, interview with those three talking about just what the Unreal Engine, most of it was just tech lingo that I was not super interested in. I want to point out that there was a cool plasma ball thing on the floor.
Okay, you say it was a cool plasma ball thing. To me, I'm like, he realized that there was nothing there. Oh man, this was a bare area in my room. It was one of those, like, again, the static
and his Tesla super low quality webcam.
Yeah. And it was just there in the middle of the empty spot, and you could even see the cord like trailing off to the side.
I love it. Anyway, so he mentioned one of his big things was, with this Unreal Engine, we're going to have a wider variety of games. Games that you couldn't have made before are now able to be made. And I mean, obviously there's an element of, well, if we can't imagine them right now, then literally doesn't have an answer to the question. But also, what kind of game can be made now that things look more realistic?
For me, when I heard that,
it was a weird
I immediately thought of the game that we were playing right now, Days Gone.
Okay.
And how the Horde in Days Gone, the way the Horde kind of works is there is a pre-rendered mass of zombies that is a singular object in game that chases you around, and then as the game processes things, zombies can peel off of that and come chase you. Yeah, and so there's only actually really half a dozen to a dozen zombies around, and then this big mass that is a separate object. Now the individual ability to be able to make each one act and think of their own volition and put them in the stark detail that those statues were in and things like that.
See, here's the thing, though.
It could make it so much more...
That's not a new game.
No, but what I'm saying is...
That's just a game.
You're right. So my point is now they can create bigger, more bombastic, more incredible moments like that. And
cool.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
It felt exaggerative to say you can make new games because our lighting and our physics engine is better now, or our detail. Like, to a certain extent, what we do with what video games are now are with all art, really, you're reiterating on things that have already come before. You're improving or creating from a new perspective or whatever, but they say there's nothing new under the sun, and I don't feel like a new physics engine is going to create a whole new genre or
here's kind of what
possibility.
I saw it. From Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64, you had Super Mario World to Mario 64.
Sure.
Because the capabilities of the Super Nintendo just could not even come close to handling what the N64 did with Mario 64, and Mario 64 created a genre. It made something brand new.
It created a new version of a genre that already existed, platforming.
Yeah, I guess.
Put it in a 3D realm. I understand. Yes. I'm not saying that wasn't a huge leap, for sure.
Right.
I just that just felt like, hey, it felt exaggerative to me and kind of dishonest.
I don't think it was exaggerative or dishonest. I think that people could make that statement more grandiose than it's meant to be.
There will be, and that might be how I was interpreting.
Yeah.
There will be new things that happen.
Yes.
For sure. I'm not saying that won't happen.
There are new things that can be done and will be done with the Unreal 5.
I want to stay away from the concept of person looks more realistic means better game.
Yes.
That's not inherently true.
Wholeheartedly agree.
So yes. I always hate that kind of terminology being used.
Right.
Attitude.
One thing I did notice about the interview afterward was mostly what happened just after that. And I don't know if he's a really good actor or if this was genuine, but Jeff Keighley seemed shocked and overwhelmed by that tech demo. There's
0% chance he hadn't already seen it.
Who knows?
Really? Okay.
Either he's a really good actor,
a really good interviewer, and come up all these questions on the fly.
But he just very much seemed wowed by the whole thing, and people consider him kind of like an industry staple. And for him to have the reaction that he had was pretty cool, I think.
Okay.
Seeing his surprise was something that made me, because obviously I don't know everything about video games.
Sure, he's going to have a better perspective on why it's a bigger deal.
And his obvious awe to me was something that was interesting.
Sure. For somebody out there, hearing 200 billion triangles is a crazy thing. For me, it's funny. It's like, cool, you got triangles in there. What about rhombuses?
You can't, because when they fit together, never mind.
Yeah, so that was interesting. One last thing, let's talk about the fact that this was apparently a PS5 demo being shown, but that's Unreal is not going to be exclusive to PS5. No. They talked about this in the thing. It's going to be used on all platforms. It's a tool to create games with. It's not going to be a proprietary technology.
I specifically wanted to talk about that because to me this was not a here's how great PS5 is going to be. To me this was the very first obvious power play that Sony has put into
something
this.
They've done, yes.
And having Unreal, the only reason they could have done this would be to pay them and say, hey, you're going to do this display on a PS5.
Tell them it's a PS5.
Right. Do it on a PS5 and tell them it's on a PS5.
Right.
And that way, when you talk about it, they have to say, yeah, the PS5 did this, and the PS5 did that, and the PS5. And again, you're right. In the interview, they specifically say, because Jeff Keighley asked, this was on a PS5. I'm really glad.
I appreciate some of his actual questions. It felt a little less scripted that way.
Yes. And they were like, we love all of our children. It's even... But
you know,
we did this on a PS5.
Fortnite 3 is gonna be Unreal 5,
right? So
gonna be 1,000 player battle royales.
So that's something new that you wouldn't be able to do.
No, it's not something new.
1,000 player battle royales.
It's a reiteration of something that already exists, made grander because of a new technology. That's not a new tech. That's not a new game, though.
If you could drive a car. Or you could go on an airplane. Both are travel. You're getting to point A to point B, but one is incredibly more grandiose.
No, you are doing something completely different in a car. You're using completely different physics. Or if
you could drive in a car plane. Or get on a racetrack.
What I'm saying is that yes, there are technology jumps that create new possibilities. But Fortnite 1000 is not a new game. It is a new mode to play this game in that wasn't possible before because of technology limitations.
And I think that's precisely what they're saying. That's precisely what they're saying.
That's fair. I get that, but we're being very what's
semantical.
Semantical. Yeah, that's a word.
It is.
Okay.
Yes, where we are quibbling on semantics. That's what.
All right, it's a good term. Yeah,
I'm an edophile.
Sure. This is not exclusive to PS5.
No.
Make sure you remember that. But
yeah,
it is something that the PS5 is capable of.
Right.
Apparently.
And again, I'm guessing this is just the very first little power play that the PS5 is going to start spitting out.
Right. So.
And I'm excited to see. This made me excited to see what Sony's going to have.
Speaking of Sony.
Yep.
Sweet transition right there. Today, we literally just watched it right before starting this, was a state of play entirely revolving around Ghost of Tsushima
is
how they said it.
Yep.
And it was a lot of gameplay. It was there's a voiceover. It was really fun to watch because I've been really excited for this.
Yes.
This game has, I'm a big fan of like Japanese history and kind of, I don't know, samurai culture.
Feudal Japan,
that kind of thing. It's always been one of my favorite settings and also historical narratives, I guess. And so I've been really looking forward to seeing this. And it showed basically, what was it, like 10 minutes? And it started off with some strong gameplay and then kind of jumped around to showcasing different concepts and different ideas and different features in the game. But overall, let's go there first. What'd you think?
To me, overall, what I really loved about it, overall, it looked really cool.
Sure.
And I was very eager to play it. What really stood out to me was the very obvious amount of immersion they want to provide for you in this.
They want you to transport you to a different place in time.
Right. And they did this by, what again, kind of shocked me, and they did a pretty good job of it, of almost entirely eliminating a HUD, which if you guys don't know, it's called a heads-up display. And when you're playing a video game and you see your health bar and your items over here and your health bar over here and, whatever down your money down in the corner here, that's a heads-up display. When you were just traveling, it was non-existent.
Yeah.
And they found in-game ways to lead you around and to guide you where you need to go.
Right.
We can talk a little bit about that more later.
Right.
But the bottom line is, it wasn't until you were in a combat situation or you chose to go into the
if you're using a certain menu or whatever, it would show up.
That it would pop up. But other than that, there was nothing that screams video game to you while you're playing the game. And I thought that was really interesting. I think it could be very, very good. I'd also think that it could cause problems. Depending.
Kind of. It's not the first game to really do that. Other games have minimalized the amount of HUD that actually shows up at all times.
Right.
I appreciated that a lot of the HUD was instanced. Like, you actually need to know this right now, so we're going to show it to you. Or like you're manipulating a menu or something, or using the D-pad buttons, and so we're going to show that, and that's, it's what you're doing right now. There are a lot of games you can just turn off the HUD, but it becomes like expert mode at that point.
Right.
And this kind of tried to ride that line between wanting you to see the game and like take away these meta things that by definition take you out of the game, out of the actual situation you're in, and also still communicate all the information you need. And so, yeah, that was really cool. I think what I really took away from it, similar, was kind of the atmosphere it was bringing. It was a very quiet game. There was music for sure happening, but a lot of it was just kind of, very period specific, like flute in the background, very, some minimal percussion happening. But especially when you're just going from one place to another, it was real quiet.
Yeah,
and it really brought to the forefront the soundtrack, the actual foley of what's happening. The wind, the rustling of the trees, the animals making noises. You can hear people in the background in the distance, whatever they're doing, fighting or whatever it is. And that, visuals are absolutely important part of the immersion, but literally every sense can be involved. Well, I don't know if I want to taste this game, but all the senses kind of need to be, so if you can kind of get that visual input but also hear what's going on around you, that's really great. So I appreciated that they were doing more than just, hey, it's a game about samurai, and trying to bring you to, no, this is a game set in a specific location during a specific time period. Yes, you are a samurai, but it's not just samurai action game.
Right.
It's bringing you to this realm, this place to kind of bring you into this story about this character.
So let's talk kind of some of the ways they circumvent that HUD, because I thought they were very cool.
Yeah.
The one that they immediately started off with,
big one, yeah.
Yeah, was called the Guiding Wind.
Yeah.
And with a lot of map-based games, because this is an open world game, and an open world game, maps are very important.
Sure.
So being able to choose where you want to go and then having some sort of guidance. Most open world games will have like a little compass. Some of them, like Days Gone, will have a literal map with a line on it that you're following.
Yeah. Some of them will even put that line on the ground in front of you so that you just follow it to where you go. And I'm not here to dunk on any of that.
No, none of that is bad.
And none of it's bad. But what they did, the Guiding Wind, was literally you would just kind of see wind lines, which technically don't exist, but it was still like the actual nature was guiding you to where you went. And it definitely, it feels like it's going to be something that eventually just becomes a mechanic.
Yes.
But it's still something that isn't immediately just inherently taking you out of the situation.
These are things that you see in a lot of games, just these little particle effects of the wind going by, just for immersion's sakes. But they've taken this particle effect ability and given it an actual in-game purpose of showing you which way to go. As we were watching, I looked at Fox and I said, it feels really good when you're going the correct direction, because now you are literally in the flow of the world.
Yeah, you are going with the wind.
The wind is blowing and it's kicking up leaves and,
flowers and stuff are bending in the direction you're going.
And you were like going along with it in the correct direction.
Yeah.
And it was very cool to see. So it felt really good. And you're right, it'll become a mechanic eventually.
Well, yeah, as all games do.
Right.
Once you play it enough, you understand how it works.
But again, their focus on immersion was very, very cool here.
Right. There were a lot of cool things to it. I like the minimal HUD. I think one of my favorite takeaways from the demo that they showed was how I'm sure the combat will be pretty interesting.
Right.
It'll be, you have what you mentioned, that there'll be different stances that you take, different weapons. I'm sure your armor is going to play a part in it. But what I loved was that most of the combat we saw was you cut someone once and they are down.
Yes.
And I want that.
Yeah.
That is what I complain a lot about in video games, like in Days Gone. I just shot that guy. Why is he not dead? Well, I'm getting shot 50 times, wrapping a Band-Aid around my arm, and I'm fine. Like, I kind of want, I don't like generally the difficult, like, Dark Souls nature, but I think I would really enjoy, after I get used to it, a game where it takes that samurai duel, like swordsmanship, like you get cut, you're down. Like you're generally not going to survive a cut up your whole body from a samurai sword.
It seemed to take the Sekiro approach where it's going to be very precision combat.
Yes.
But then tone it down.
Far less arcadey.
Yeah, far less button mashy and like just
without the ability to resurrect or
right. And so it just brings it all the way down to you need to be precise and you need to be immediate. But if you get that, you kill them instantly.
Yeah. I want that to be a thing. I want it to be to the extent that you are fighting major boss and you have to cut him 3 times and he dies because you're cutting off his armor or something like that. Like, which will be fun if you also feel that danger yourself. Because you are also a person who can be cut down by a sword.
So Jin, the main character of the game, the protagonist of the game, he at no point...
As far as we know, protagonist.
Right, the person they showcase.
Person you play as.
He at no point became injured or got hit. So we don't actually know what the danger is for us as the player.
Yeah, there was at the bottom left during combat like a little like UI thing that they didn't explain.
Right.
It was like circles. And I didn't know exactly what all those were. I'm hoping you can take as little damage as everybody else.
Yeah.
To kind of get that. Or maybe just that's a higher difficulty. If that's what I find out the difficulty is, I will play on a higher difficulty.
Ooh.
Because I like that concept of this is what it would be like to be in a samurai duel.
You will like that concept.
I'll like it for
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Look. Yeah, it's probably true. If we play it together though, I'll have to play the whole thing.
Yep.
So anyway, I just like the concept of that to kind of create a realism about the like they showcased duels.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Very cool. But if that duel you have to cut them 17 times, then it's not a duel that's just going to become an arcade fighter. Like, it's not going to feel... They're trying to create that, also obviously realistic, but also to kind of give you that feel of a classic Japanese, like, samurai movie. They specifically talk about samurai film.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, and so to keep it, like, the stakes high and the tension there, you got to feel like you're in danger.
They did show a couple of combat scenes where you had to cut somebody 3 times.
Yeah, but
where you slashed your sword 3 times, but there was literally the only time that we saw something more than you slashing 3 times against somebody for them to fall down was there was one armored person,
super heavy armor guy,
and you attacked them, you got your critical hit on them, but then it was like armored or whatever, and then the guy kind of staggered and stood up. And then you threw a kunai at him, and then he died.
You did something. It was not. He wasn't. You weren't just whittling down a health bar.
Right.
There was a clear impact that your attacks had, and I really loved that.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
It definitely was cool. Another part, as far as the combat goes, was there was a difference between Ghost and Jin.
Yeah.
And we're not exactly sure what this is going to be right now. What this is exactly going, or Ghost and Samurai.
Yeah, it was one character, and they were 2 different ways.
Right, Jin as
Jin the Ghost,
Samurai, or Jin as Ghost, and it seemed like it was your choice of how to follow Bushido. Which, if you guys don't know, Bushido was the samurai code of honor. And if you are following Bushido, or if you're going in as samurai, there was this Mongol camp, and you could just walk into this camp. You
walk in and challenge them,
you just fight people. And it's kind of one at a time, because again, you're challenging people.
Right.
Sometimes 2 people will attack, and you do a good job fighting them off. But it is they do, again, in-game, the immersion, good job of displaying that during the middle of the day.
Right.
You're literally walking into this camp and just fighting everybody.
Right.
Or you could go in as Ghost Jin, and this was at night, and now you could use fear and distraction tactics to be able to go in and sneak attack everybody. It was 100% stealth, you leaping off top of things and stabbing people. It was super cool looking. I really hope, my one hope is that this doesn't become a canned morality system.
Sure. And yeah, so it talked about the narrator specifically mentioned you would be using techniques that are dishonorable.
Right.
And so
honor was something that was mentioned specifically. Yes.
Right. And I'm really hoping that this is going to be an opportunity for a quote unquote binary morality system that we see a lot. We saw in like Mass Effect, where it's just like one thing is good or bad, or one thing is bad, you have to do one of them. And I understand sometimes you got limitations, whatever.
Right.
But this is at least going to be an opportunity to follow a system that does exist in the real world.
Yeah.
There are things you can do according to Bushido or reasoning behind whatever you do that is dishonorable according to this universal system, and these are not. And so if you do these things in real life, like people, I'm hoping what this all leads to is this will affect your reputation or who you can interact with or, who you're considered, whatever, how that's going. I'm really curious as to see, is there going to be a binary system? How is it going to work? I hope it's not just you have 10 Bushido points or negative 10.
Right.
Because that's not as interesting. I really wanted to just show up in rumors people talk about. I've heard of this Jin. I've heard what you've done.
Oh, the way
Jin.
people react to you.
Yeah, people
like
reacting
you are
to
an
you.
honorable man. I'm happy to do this for you, or I know who you are. Like you're a man of dishonor. Get out of my town.
Or fear, or higher prices at shops. Or, I don't know, something
or,
like
or
that.
the opposite. Like I know that you're a man who gets things done. A samurai can't take on. A samurai won't take on what I need because it's dishonorable. But I need your help.
Right.
know?
Yeah, and so have that be a part of the game, but don't have it be something that we can quantify.
Yes, I agree.
And have it be something that naturally shows up in your interactions with other people, because that's what a Bushido was for, was how you were, known in the world.
On the notes of reputation, something that I thought was super cool that they showed with Ghost Jin was as you were invading this Mongol camp and just murdering everybody.
Yeah.
Somebody saw you, dropped his spear.
That was great.
And fell over backward. And the narrator said, the Mongols will be afraid of you.
Yeah.
And something that Fox and I joke about a lot is when we're a protagonist in a video game and we murder 83 people, and then the 84th is like, come on,
I'll
man.
take you down.
Yeah.
Will you, though?
Come on. Like, really? You're not running in terror?
You should be running away. How much are you being paid, henchman?
This was one of those moments in which you took out 8 guys around you without an issue, and then there's one guy standing, and he drops his spear, backs up, and falls over, and then Ghost walks over and just stabs him on the
Kills
ground.
him.
And it felt natural and real.
Natural, real, and also would be a dishonorable thing according to Bushido.
Absolutely.
Somebody who is unarmed and not willing to fight you, stabbing them through their chest. Yeah, that is a bad thing.
It was really cool. And again, with that measurement of Bushido, make it not an actual literal measurement, something that we can't see, but also make little notes of how we measure that in game, though. So the more guys that are falling over terrified of us, that would be super cool.
Or somebody runs away to another camp and spreads the rumor that you are a murderer.
Right. Or if your honor is super high, instead of that guy falling over and not wanting to fight you, it's them just laying down their sword and like just standing there.
And unwilling to fight, or
not in terror, but in respect.
Quips of dialogue that say, I do not expect to win this, but it is an honor to fight you. Or something where it's clear that your actions are having an impact on your reputation in the world.
Yeah. So the combats, everything to me came down to what I started with, and that is immersion.
Yeah.
And trying to make this feel like a very real thing that you're doing. And so far, it's looking very successful.
One question I have is how supernatural the world will be. I don't think it's going to be this way, but they do have something called charms.
Right.
There is real quick, there was a little kind of a note that I'd mentioned when we were walking it, but I didn't really enjoy it. You walk up to like a shrine and it said like press R2 to honor shrine, and it felt
press
like
F to pay respect.
Yeah, it just felt like one of those. It felt like it was, and then when you did it, then like a little bar filled up partially, and like you got religious points.
Yeah.
And outside of a religious thing, it just felt like if like I'm okay with that actually having an effect. Some of those UI things felt too video gamey for the situation they're trying to give you.
I would agree. If you were in an Elder Scrolls game and you went to the Temple of the Nine, and they bless you with an ability, cool. That's what happens in this fantasy world.
It's an Elder Scrolls game, yeah.
But when it's a very literal thing that real human beings do, and it's something that's really important to them, like again, Fox and I are Christians. We're very solid believers. In a game, if there was pray at altar points and you got God boost, I would be like,
I read this amount of scripture, and so I'm this much more holy.
Yeah,
like that's the antithesis of our religion, and so it felt like this is kind of in poor taste a little bit, and also just kind of lame.
A little, yeah. I'd say more lame than in poor taste, but still a little bit in poor taste area.
The Shinto religion is different nowadays.
Yes.
Than it used to. It still exists. But yeah, so that one's felt kind of weird. But what I want to talk about now is how supernatural. They had something called charms, which were specifically for, I don't know if they were deities or certain ways of thinking or whatever, but they were essentially equipment that would give you different boosts. There was one specifically that was like, you'll slowly regenerate health outside combat. Pretty standard for video games.
Right.
But to me, that's kind of weird in a game where you are a samurai. Like, it felt like something supernatural. And here's what I want to happen. I'm a big fan of Usagi Yojimbo, a very long-running comic series in which, I mean, the world is fantastical. All the characters are animals, sure. You get past that when you read it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You recognize they're just people depicted as animals. But there are a lot of stories, I would say most stories, where it's just, Usagi Yojimbo, who is a ronin, a wandering samurai, basically interacting with other people, fighting other people, and then there's occasionally stories where he comes across a demon or some kind of spirits, and it's crazy for him. He's like, oh no, a spirit, but it's also like makes sense within the world.
Right.
And I would love to have, you're walking into the forest and you come across a kappa. And it's not like you still react as you might, like, whoa, what is this thing? But you also, like, I want that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Low fantasy?
Low fantasy would mean modern times, but...
Well, maybe not modern times. Well, low fantasy, but if modern times was feudal Japan.
I get real world, but with fantasy type
real
things.
World with fantasy things in it where it's not, like, you're not just fighting big monsters all the time. Those things show up and you might. I guess, like, I think, like, The Witcher kind of does it really well, where it kind of incorporates fantasy elements in a world that feels very real.
Yeah,
I would love for that to happen. I don't expect it to happen, but I also kind of feel like if they don't, then the charms don't make a lot of sense because it's like a magical thing happening to you.
To me, it's what samurai thought was actually happening. Like, they believed this was the very real thing when they wore these charms or they went to these temples and they prayed in these ways. The people of the time thought that was real, so they did these things, and so it's treating it as if it was real, but they also thought these demons were real and things like that. So if they do include these demons and whatnot, I think it would be cool if there were very rare things.
Oh,
maybe
100%.
even like those secret, that one secret that you can get, or if you want this specific benefit or bonus, you need to go find this one kappa.
You found this lair in the woods. It's a completely random thing. It's not
related. That's where the Oni lives.
I would love if this main story is complete. Like, what our theory is that it's about you fighting the Mongol invaders on this island. But yeah, I would love like the supernatural stuff to have its very own separate thing, so that it can stay kind of compartmentalized and not just become about you fighting demons.
Right.
Yeah. That'd be really cool to me. But other than that, like, either way, I'm really excited for just kind of the atmosphere and the location that they're giving you, as well as the kind of realistic combat. And yeah, I think it's going to do justice to the setting that they're trying to get across.
Well, speaking of doing justice to the setting, let's come out of the gameplay right now.
Okay.
And let's get into some of those extra tidbits that they're tagging on to things like we mentioned earlier about samurai movies. Something that you're going to be able to do in the game is obviously subs or dubs. You can play with it subtitled in Japanese or dubbed in English, which is great. I think that's a really cool preference option there.
Yeah, I will definitely be going for English subtitles with Japanese dialogue.
But then you could also overlay from the very beginning a black and white with that kind of like film cigar
grainy film stock kind of thing.
Overlay over the whole thing to make it look like a classic Japanese film.
Yeah.
And
they showed it. I think it's obviously not going to affect the gameplay.
No.
And I think it was kind of cool, kind of a like, hey, this is a thing we want to pay homage to. To me, it was like, yeah, I'll definitely do Japanese dialogue and English subtitles, but I'd rather play in color.
For me, it's a second playthrough thing.
Yeah, if at all, for sure. But it was a nice nod to something that they're clearly being inspired by.
Right. And then they had a really good photo mode.
Yep.
That I thought was really cool was they have a video mode in the photo mode where it's a still thing, but then you can set the wind, the direction of the wind, what kind of things are flying in the wind, how fast the wind is going, overlays, all that other stuff. And then you can go like music in the background, and then you can record like a camera pan of your character with this cape blowing or whatever else.
Yeah, every game needs to have a photo mode. A, it's fun, and also B, it's free advertising for your game. The community will want to use it. and every time they share it, it means somebody else is looking at how cool your game looks. So this just makes sense to me. It also goes along with the whole Japanese, the samurai film kind of thing, and recreating those classic moments. And
there is going to be a Fashion Souls-esque type thing going on. There's a lot of different types of armor and things like that. And they specifically said, unlike Fashion Souls, the armor will have a direct effect on the gameplay. The Dark Souls, the armor had a minimal effect. More than anything was for fashion. Yeah. But in this, they said it was a direct effect. But you can collect flowers in the game. And as you collect colors of flowers, you can dye your armor different colors. Sure.
I'm hoping that actually has an effect. Like they showed a location called the Golden Forest, which was yellow, like flat yellow leaves on all these trees. If you have yellow armor, will I be able to stealth a little bit better? Right. Like I'm hoping it has small effects like that.
So there were a lot of aesthetic choices that were very cool. The whole game looks very pretty. It looks like some of the best that we've seen, the PlayStation output, PS4 output. Yeah. And
I'm really excited. I really want to know. I really want to know more about the story. Agreed. I'm sold on the gameplay. It looks great, and I'm really excited to learn this story. I hope it's very quiet. I hope it's very simple, and I hope it doesn't devolve into fighting giant monsters or something. I just want it to be a simple samurai story.
Yeah. Agreed. Be what Sekiro wasn't. Sekiro was fantastic.
Sekiro was great. Well, yeah.
It was very good game of the year for a reason, in a lot of ways for a reason. But I want this to be the whole same samurai setting with the exact opposite.
The opposite atmosphere and
much more calm
tone.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching. Yeah. Those were the 3 presentations that happened this week. We were really happy to talk about our views on them, but we also want to hear your views and exactly what you thought of them. So you can put those down in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We also really appreciate it when you share and you like and you do all those cool things with this video. We have a lot more stuff coming, so go ahead and pay attention to that.
In a couple weeks in June, beginning of June, there's a few things coming. Steam Game Festival, that's going to be a big one for us. And then there's going to be a big Cyberpunk 2077 broadcast, which I'm super pumped for. And then also EA Play, also on June 11th. Those are as far as we know, the next things coming out in the Summer Game Fest. There might be more added. So keep paying attention. We'll have more stuff as it gets announced.
Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you later.
Bye.